of each other and to our citizens who come to speak with us. We pray for our country and our state. There's lots of needs out there, and we hope that we'll all be working for some common goals to live the life you'd have us to live and to make our lives better. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Raise the flag and repeat with me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair now will recognize Madam Clerk for purpose of calling the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bradford?
Present.
Mr. Everson?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Present.
Mr. Corbin?
Present.
Mr. Fleury?
Present.
Ms. Lynch?
Okay.
Mr. Bolson?
Here. Tomorrow we'll be seeking a motion to approve the minutes of the conference from the previous meeting. Now we come to awards. Does any council member have any awards, recognition of distinguished guests today they'd like to present? I believe I hear one coming from.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Is my mic muted?
They believe it is.
Better when they do.
Somebody needs to be.
I just wanted to mention that tomorrow I don't have a presentation or any awards today, but I did have a few different requests from people that happen to all fall on tomorrow to come down and just make some introduction remarks to the council. Both of them, two are medically related, and the third was not a presentation so much as it was from the interfaith group wanting to lead an invocation for for this last meeting before we get to Easter. So there would be a couple of little special groups coming down tomorrow, and just wanted to get a heads up in case we were trying to plan our time.
Okay. Any other council? Mayor Collins?
None today, thank you.
Okay. That brings us to reports. Mr. Terrence Green, be recognized at this time. Does any member have questions concerning property and standards?
I don't have a question specifically, David, Mr. Green, but I appreciate the package you gave me regarding the property at 2232 LaGuardia. I spoke with the daughter of the owner who's deceased, and she also was supposed to be sending me something. And I want to see if, when I get that, if we can coordinate the process. Your documents, I guess, shows that the process was indeed implemented, the proper process. And she's denying it, but I think we can work it out, as well as that other incident that I told you about. So this week, maybe after tomorrow or Wednesday, if we can get together, maybe Mike Woods could be a part of that meeting, so we can try to resolve this with this young lady. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crawford's already presented us with the revenue collection plan via email. Any questions there? Mr. Bradford's also submitted the surety bond report. Any questions on that? Okay. There are no public hearings today. Let's see, Mr. Sweeney, we get you the second meeting, so we'll catch you next time. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah. But Mr. Okay, got it. I would appreciate it, Mr. Sweeney, would stick around, because I think an amendment or a substitute resolution will be offered today, and I need some clarification on that.
That good? Okay. All right, no public hearing. Agenda, adding legislation to the agenda. Mr. Crawford?
We don't have any from the administrative perspective that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I see no request to speak. Confirmations tomorrow we will consider Metropolitan Planning Commission Attorney Curtis R. Joseph Jr. There are no items under consent agenda for introduction. Mr. Crawford, let's continue to the items to be adopted.
Items to be adopted under the consent agenda legislation are resolution number 60, authorizes the use of certain equipment by the North Shreveport Business Association. This has a dollar value amount of $1,688 from SPAR. Number 62, resolution has authorizes the use of certain equipment by the Department of the Air Force for Barksdale Air Force Base Air Show. Resolution 63 authorizes the use of certain equipment by Sports Spectrum Race Management and the River Cities Triathlon. Resolution 64 authorizes the use of certain equipment by the North Shreveport Business Association. Resolution 67 rejects bids received on IFB 17-017 Concourse B roof replacement, Shreveport Regional Airport. The bid was $625,785. The budget was $550,000 for that project. Resolution 68 suspends the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances for the July 17, 2017 Cross Lake Flotilla. Resolution 69 suspends provisions of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the sale, dispensing, and consumption of alcoholic beverages at Red River Brewing Company during a private crawfish boil hosted by the Independence Bowl Foundation. Resolution 70 suspends the effects of certain provisions of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances Saturday, April 22nd, 2017, Saturday, July 29th, 2017, Tuesday, August the 8th, 2017, Saturday, August the 26th, 2017, and Saturday, November the 4th, 2017, in connection with fundraising efforts by Shreveport Moose Lodge number 2239. Resolution 71 suspends certain provisions of Chapter 10 and Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the sale, dispensing, and consumption of alcoholic beverages at Hope Connections. Resolution 72 congratulating Kenneth R. Epperson, Sr. for 20 years of public service as a member of the Board of Directors of the Caddo Community Action Agency.
A question, Mr. Crawford,
Yes,
in
sir.
regards to 63, would it be, given that you probably participate in that?
I've been known to. Depends on how I feel that morning.
Okay, any question?
I do have one. How do we, somewhere a little more specific on, particularly in the way you read it, the value associated with the enterprise, so to speak. And maybe this is just because when we talked about Heroes Barbecue, you said $1,000. But then Department of Air Force, the Air Show, or Sports Spectrum, those also have costs associated.
Sure.
That are listed in the actually fine print on the document, which is perfect. Are we doing any, just by the way you're reading it, are you suggesting there's a different type of money, or just it happened to be the way you...
No. It was a note that I probably took. Each one of the fact sheets actually have the amount listed on there, and I may have just inadvertently spoken about one and not another because I had made a note on it when I did my review last week.
Okay, no. And so that's the only point I was going to make is, from my perspective, every one of these costs the city
Absolutely.
some type of money, whether
correct.
it's services or equipment or whatever it is. And I want to make sure there wasn't something specific that we were doing different for the Heroes Barbecue that we weren't doing for the other 8 or 9 things we do.
It's listed in each one.
Perfect.
I'll
Okay.
make a point of referencing those when I speak in the future. Each one.
Sure. Whichever way you want to do it, I just didn't want to make it
No,
say that this one's different.
I understand.
Okay, Mr. Crawford, please proceed.
Let's see. Let me scroll down. Regular agenda legislation, resolutions on second reading and final passage, or which will require only one reading. Resolution 58 authorizes the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the State of Washington Department of Labor and Industries and the City of Shreveport. And Resolution 59 authorizes the execution of a cooperative endeavor agreement with Southern Hills Business Association. I think this is the Music in the Park Festival. Great time out there.
Any questions? All right, Mr. Crawford.
Yes, sir. Introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to April the 25th, 2017. Resolution 73 is from the airport. It authorizes the mayor to accept a donation of a passenger boarding bridge from American Airlines for the Shreveport Airports Department. American Airlines will be paying for the cost of the bridge. The city will be incurring, or the airport will be incurring the cost of the installation.
Any questions?
Yes, but he's only because I listened to him that I misunderstood. I noted to myself, then we'll negotiate a lease agreement with American to recover those funds. Now, is that the installation that we're going to recover the funds, or the cost of the
installation?
Okay, copy. Because one is one number and one is a city. And I was like, well, are we sure that check's coming in the mail? Because that's okay. Good to go. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Crowe?
Mr. Chairman, we're at introduction of ordinances not to be adopted prior to April the 25th, 2017. Ordinance 36 amends the 2017 budget for the general fund. This is a $244,700 supplement from the city courts that they provide annually in conjunction with the city's contribution to their budget of $3,472,900 to make a total of $3,700,600. Ordinance 37 amends the 2017 capital improvements budget. This is additional funding to be provided for the I-49 beautification to match and partner with an LA DOTD grant of $765,000. Ordinance 38 declares the city's intention to establish the temporary servitudes on certain adjudicated properties for the water and sewer consent decree project. And Ordinance 39 authorizes the expenditure of $5,353,000 for Street Special Revenue Fund for the purposes of performing asphalt improvements and asphalt surface roadways in Shreveport. Ordinance number 40, levying a tax of 18 and 16/100 mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation for the city of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017 for the purposes of paying principal and interest on outstanding general obligation bonds. Ordinance 41, levying a tax of 8 and 55/100 mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the boundaries of the Downtown Development District of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana, as defined by LA RS 332740.38 for the year 2017 in the amounts and for the purpose described herein. Ordinance 42 levies various taxes totaling 17 and 22/100 mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation within the City of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017 and the amounts and for the purposes described herein. Ordinance 43 provides for an increase in the millage rates whereby the city shall roll forward the millage rates not exceeding the maximum authorized rate and levying various taxes totaling 17 and 65/100 mils per dollar on all property subject to ad valorem taxation with the City of Shreveport, Louisiana for the year 2017 in the amounts for the purposes and for the purposes prescribed herein. Ordinance 44 amends Ordinance number 129 of 2016. This is for clarification and UDC efforts sponsored by Councilman Everson.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Mr. Pratt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, I want to speak on two, but I want to speak on 37 first. And I didn't other council members respond, but and this some discussion was on this ordinance was made in our infrastructure committee meeting just a while back, and we was. I mean, we was trying to debate and ascertain the benefits of allocating additional funds for beautification along I-49 when, in my opinion, throughout the city there, that these funds could be better used to help provide infrastructure, road repair to neighborhoods, within the districts of neighborhoods, within the streets and communities. And I asked the question whether or not it could be this whole project and the intersections was named. If we could downsize this request or this obligation or commitment that the state has engaged us in, it's a 13 or 14 year project that has not been implemented. But again, like most of the things have fallen on us now, but things are different than they were 13, 14 years ago. I mean, our funding, our budget, our commitments, our needs are all different. I could certainly support a project similar to the one that's coming into the city from the west on I-49 at 3132, where there's a gateway sort of beautification apparatus, nice, welcome Shreveport. But to put beautification projects on 4 intersections where the actual persons that's on I-49 probably won't see is for those that are getting off of I-49 or those that's within those communities. I just believe that these funds would be better utilized in another place. I mean, it was mentioned by one of our guests at the meeting that some residents in other parts of the city will even never see these projects, this beautification. And but if we did something within the communities, like we are going to do with Ordinance 39, it just seemed to me it'll make more sense. The state, it's not unusual for the state to have long-standing projects that never get actually implemented, never get done. Money is being wasted for design work and for other things, and I think it was mentioned that there was some resources already spent regarding this project, but it's such a huge commitment from the city at this time, at a time when we, I think, could better utilize these funds and where the city as a whole would not be privy to this work, and the travelers that's coming through the city likewise would not be privy to seeing this work unless they exited on one of these intersections to get off to go to a part of the community. So I would just like to request that the administration kind of explain their rationale on wanting to move forward with this at this time.
Mayor? I will, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. Councilman Bradford, there has been, I think, there was a request done back in 2001, from what I was told, to actually establish a project that would come into our city from a main thoroughway, and I-49 is one of those. We have a lot of people coming in every day.
Sure.
And the state allocated $765,000 in grant funding to Shreveport for that project, but the funds have never been spent, and consequently we don't have that signatory coming into our city from I-49. And so when I discovered that that was available and we've never taken advantage of it, I went to take advantage of it.
Sure.
Now, of course, 16 years later, the costs are different, and but we had to do matching funding to be able to do it. As we travel to other cities and other towns, oftentimes we see something that really is beautiful going into cities, and we don't see much of that coming into Shreveport. I think that's not a good thing. And so I wanted to, and I still want to, make this happen because I think it's needed. Coming in from I-49, we have a lot of traffic. When I go to Natchitoches, even small town Natchitoches, when I turn and go into Natchitoches, beautiful display. And to me, it builds the pride. And if the state has saved this money all these years and they told me that we could still get it, I think it's worth going ahead trying to do projects so that we would have something nice coming into our city. So that's my rationale.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not at all in disagreement with the rationale as it relates to a gateway that is visible from the interstate coming into the Shreveport, identifying us as a nice city, you know. Mm-hmm. But at the at the intersections of 70th and of Kings and of there's another one. There's 4.
70th Kings Paramount.
Paramount. Okay, where this revenue resource would be expended to beautify those sectors where you won't see those except for locals.
Okay.
Is my question.
I see.
Okay, and I'm asking, and I asked the committee, and those that was in the committee administrator, could that be modified to where we could just utilize the funds for the Burt Coon intersection or exit, where we can create a very nice gateway like there is on that, coming in, from the west at 3132
Okay.
20.
Okay.
So, and I'm asking that could we make
Location.
that? Could we seek that from the DOTD? See if those funds could be repurposed for that section.
Yep, I'm sure we can ask. I'm not sure if they told us a location. Did they tell us a location? Mr. Westerman, can you come up for just a second, because he has the history. So come on up and tell us a little bit about why the area was chosen. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman?
Sure.
Okay.
If I could, while he's on his way, just to add, I want to commend the mayor for moving forward with this. I mean, I know it's a project that's been in the stages of development for a long time, and it had some roadblocks, and I think that y'all have worked hard, and this council has supported some of those past efforts to be able to get to the point where we are today. And so I really appreciate the mayor for moving forward with this project. Now, one thing, I can certainly understand your initial concerns, but I would ask to let's hold final judgment until we've maybe had a chance to see the plans, because that was one of the things we discussed at the infrastructure committee meeting today, was that we've not actually had a chance to see the designs for this project yet. So I think once we do that, we'll have a little bit of a better frame of reference of where it's visible from, what it does, what the actual what the actual project that we're discussing is, and I think that's helpful to know. So just wanted to mention that briefly, and certainly look forward to Robert's history lesson on how we got to where we are now.
Absolutely. And if I could say one thing before Mr. Westerman speaks, there was no movement at all, Councilman. I mean, when I came in and I discovered that we had the funding, I don't think they had done any movement in the past how many years? It's just been, the money
15 years roughly.
It's been sitting there. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want people thinking that this has been in the works. It was not in the works. They started something years ago, and when I was told we had the money, and so we called DOTD, and they said, the money's been sitting here waiting there, Tyler. I mean.
What I was referring to there was something that I believe was in your first year, you had a proposal that allowed access to water for these sites. That was
we did.
And that's what I was referring
Yes.
to as some of the past progress that's been made.
Okay.
It was in your first year there that we started talking about that. And just wanted to remind the council that was part of this same project.
That is part of it, yes. Thank you, sir. Mr. Westerman?
Councilman, in reference to your question, the intersections that are identified in the project with I-49 were specifically addressed in the project boundaries for that project, those intersections that we talked about. Burt Coons, 70th, Kings Highway, and Piermont. But they are specifically addressed within the grant funding.
Right. Okay, so my question is, and my concern is this. Shreveport and the state are both in different financial conditions than they were 15 years ago. It's just hard for me to support something that would take funds that could be utilized in a district. In my district A, has the worst streets, documented streets that have not been overlaid in 30 years plus. Conditions of streets that filling potholes would no longer be adequate. To utilize funds for some beautification when we just want basic street conditions. And I could agree with the gateway part. And I think the thing that we may need to consider as a city, and the state may agree with it, is that we would want to reassess that grant funding, even if they had to reduce it to our commitment would be less, eliminate every intersection except for the Burt Coons intersection, where we can utilize funding to make a nice gateway. And I'm saying, could that be an option to pursue before we obligate additional funds? We got 500,000, I think, on record as commitment to match the funds, another 250,000. I said before we go there and commit that, could we ask DOTD? Could we reconsider that gateway project, or those 4 gateway projects, and bring it to just one project that we feel would be as beneficial to the tourists and to the image of the city as those 4 would.
Councilman, with regards to that, first of all, the project, the grant is set up to where the city of Shreveport, the state pays for 95% of the construction cost, and the city would pay for 5% of the construction cost. The city is obligated to pay for all of the design costs and all of the construction inspection costs. Now, as the project has already been designed, we've already out-pocketed that money. It's spent and it's gone. So now what we're talking about is the funds that are necessary for construction and the funds that are necessary for inspection of the project site. Okay? Can the money be reallocated? It's possible, but we would have to take it up with LADOTD to whether or not we could reallocate those funds to one specific intersection.
And that's all I'm requesting, Mayor. And it's not unusual. There's been several street projects that have been designed for X amount of dollars that have not been budgeted for work, and the possibility until that happens, then that money is sitting out there. But again, my issue is simply that time and time again we find out that something have not happened that has been on the books or been on the table for years and years, and at a time when we need resources the most, we have been asked to supply those funds when there are so many more things that I consider a priority coming from the same pot of funding. And I'm just going to, again, at least ask and consider that it could be approached by, we could approach DOTD to say, can we do this? And if we can't do that, then I think we can make a determination from there. But I don't want to use as a premise that, well, we already have $200,000 for design work, and we're going to put another $250,000. I'm saying, we've heard the cliche, throwing good money after bad money, and I think this would be one of those scenarios. I really do, because I don't think that it would benefit the city as a whole for off ramps to be beautified when other parts of the city would be more benefited. Residents themselves within the district that we all represent would be benefited. So if the administration would take that into consideration, I would certainly appreciate that. To reach out to the DOTD, see if those are options. Do we have options in that? Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Corwin, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did, not necessarily for Robert, just some general comments. We did get the opportunity to discuss this in infrastructure committee meeting, and I'm glad that we were able to begin our discussion there and then spill it over to here. I'm all about beautification and making things look better and making our city a welcoming place. A project with a 5% match, we've been told that we've already spent $200,000. Now we're being asked to spend the $250,000. And I was educated in Bossier, so my math could be wrong, but it seems like we're well over a 5% match, and we're up in that 60-65% match at this point. Maybe there's some opportunities because we've had some interest out in the public. You know, we recently passed some revisions to our Adopt a Street legislation. Maybe this is something where we can use the monies that we've already put in, and there are some, you know, some private entities, some businesses that would like to help fund this. But I'd like to be sure that we look at all of our options before we take money that the citizens said in 2011 we want to use for street maintenance and repair, and we use it for something else. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that's everyone. Okay, Mr. Crawford, would you proceed?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I want to speak on 39 if I'm in order.
Mr. Bradford, you-
Okay. Thank you again, Administration Mayor. Thank you for your proactiveness in looking at the needs of our streets and wanting to provide funds for such. The streets that are mentioned, are those streets firm? Or is there any room for additional streets or streets that are alternative streets to those that are listed to make up the 500 billion plus?
Which streets? What are we talking about?
The streets that are listed in 39 as part of the
making
2017
an
street.
amendment.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're making an amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
let's make one.
those are the ones that we've identified using the tool that we have that were the worst,
Okay.
starting at this stage, and then we're trying to continue those efforts. And I think that you know, if there is some streets in your district, and we've always worked with you, each of you, if you want to change out some of those for those streets.
Excuse me, but I think what Councilman Bradford said, he'd like to give us some of his.
Some of his.
Is that's where I'm.
No. See, you misunderstood, Mr. Chairman.
Did I hear it right?
No, I was thinking if we amend something and take something out of District G and E and put it in District A. That's what I was
That's
doing.
not what I heard. Okay, I'm glad you cleared that up. I'm sorry, Mayor, you go ahead.
I
That got to be what I heard.
That's what I heard.
We're just trying to make sure that we continue the efforts to fix streets in everybody's district.
Oh, that has to be an
And we've looked
ongoing
at
project.
every district, and we want to make sure that we are doing it as fairly as we possibly can, and addressing those issues. And I think if you look at you know, the plans that we put in place for the past 2 years, we've been aggressive in trying to get some of those streets done. And this one is just a continuation. And if you have streets, and we've worked with each of you, that you want to see done in your district that's different from the ones that we have listed, we'll be glad to work with you.
Okay.
But we did not pick the streets based on anything other than what the rubric said, where those worst streets were, and then we're trying to continue that. And each year as the money comes in for street special revenue, we want to utilize that for every district and keep getting those done.
And I appreciate that, and I think this is the formula or the model that is much beneficial than the other model, because whenever we're utilizing funds that was designated for citywide projects, to be equitable is the right thing to do. And I think it appears that the amounts that you have allocated for each district is almost, equitable. But the project for I-49 would be placed in an area where the benefits would not be shared like that. So, but there was a couple of streets that we had mentioned that was on one of our proposed street overlay projects that are not here, and I'll share that with you, and see if we can either look at the worst street, because I've asked for streets, and Robert was, they was out in the community once, and they was doing some streets, and one street, person wanted to see why they was over here. Can they go ahead and do this street? But the problem was that street did not, in my opinion, and as well as the engineer's opinion, did not meet that standard of this street is not as worse as the street down the street. So I like that process. That let's look at, let's because everybody says, well, my street hasn't been done, but your street still maybe hasn't been done in 10, 12 years. And I think the shelf life on the street from Jefferson Street is 15 to 17, but still there are some streets that have not been done in plus 30 years. And I think the streets are identified here, but there are some that I think are worse than what is on here. That was the one I want to share with you.
All right.
And again, that's my opinion. The opinion of the others may be different, but I think at least we can look at them and eyeball them and then look at the process and see if that.
And when we get the citizens' complaint about those other streets, we'll just refer those to you.
Yeah. Well, to me, I have to refer back to you.
Let me tell you, we work with the council members, but I also get the personal emails and the letters about the other streets. And now that we're getting streets done, we get a lot of, requests, and we try to do it objectively as we possibly can. But certainly sometimes we miss the mark, and we'll be glad to revisit.
We'll do that within the next 2 weeks. Okay.
All right.
Fake news. Mayor, I thought we bought a piece of software under the Glover administration that Satellite or something told us about what streets were rated.
Yes, sir. We did.
So we couldn't eyeball them. We'd have to use that software.
No, because there's some streets that has been done, and I think the technology is still listed some streets as have not been overlaid.
Yeah, they haven't updated the results.
They have not.
They have not updated the results.
They have not.
The data for the streets that have been addressed. It's not an app. It's
Okay, I'm with you.
Especially,
I'm with you.
and somebody mentioned, and I don't know if they called it, I think they call you, the administration, that Google Earth is also showing this street as being dilapidated. They say, we don't want our street to be seen as that on Google Earth. So, y'all, whatever we need to do, let's update it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Corbin.
We're going to work with you.
Mr. Corbin, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly glad to see monies being expended on this overlay program. I will make a note that in District D, although there's a large project of over $600,000 there, there's less than a half mile of that road is actually in District D. There's a very small piece of it, maybe more like a quarter of a mile. And I am thankful to get that redone with the new construction of the Kroger Marketplace. That little section of Florida Lucas is in need of some work, and I hope that happens quickly. I'm going to step into Chairman Fleury's district now, and hopefully I'm not stepping on his toes when I say this.
No.
But that area of Florida Lucas from Wallace Lake to Kingston, hope that we can get going on that quickly. I do have some reservations about from the railroad tracks behind Kroger Marketplace to Wallace Lake Road. Mm-hmm. We have a very large residential development and a lot of construction going on there. I'd hate to overlay that and find that immediately torn up because of concrete trucks and construction materials being delivered and things like that. And I know we asked this before in previous years. That section needs more than overlay from Wallace Lake to the railroad tracks. I mean, it needs a lot, and if it could have an extra foot on either side, that would sure be beneficial. And before we just simply do an overlay, I hope that we'll take a really close look at that little section of the road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I would be remiss if I did not try to get some clarification on Ordinance 44.
Yes, I'm sorry. Ordinance 44 is being offered in the event that the Caddo Parish Commission does not make a clear decision, or either that they make a decision that is not compatible with what we already passed. Because what we passed envisioned that they would have a clear passage of the Unified Development Code. And so should they pass something different, this is being introduced in order to give us an opportunity to vote on that before the proposed implementation, so that we can stay consistent with something that will clean up allow us to do what we need to do and give them the time to do what they need to do. So if you have questions about it, let me know beyond that, but that's generally the intent of it. So it's an introduction right now so that it would be able to be voted on in a time frame that would not put us in sort of a gray area of we already voted to implement this and then they didn't vote for the same thing. So what do we do? A way to see that.
Well, the question of whether or not I support the UDC is not the question, because I think this body has adopted did our due diligence in the last 2 years of getting the information, asking the questions, and then acting. My question is simply that for 2 years this has been presented as a unified development code. If this action is implemented, if it needs to be implemented, would that modify that this would not be a unified development code?
No, the Unified Development Code, as Mr. Settle pointed out in a recent article as well, unified is meaning the unification of the subdivision ordinances and the zoning ordinances into a consistent code. And so, along with some other best practices and inclusion of indications where other ordinances are relevant. So it's unified in that way, in that somebody who's a developer can go and look at one set of code to understand what they need to do to develop a piece of property. So it doesn't undo that. It does make the possibility that the way this is enforced inside the city and outside and out in the parish could be different. That's to be determined by the Caddo Parish Commission's eventual vote of what they do. And so since they took some initial votes that appear to not have been conclusive, they're going to go back and reconsider it, and they have some things that are still ongoing. So, and like I say, in an effort to be prepared, we've had our look at it and our chance to make our decision. They're doing that, and it's going to take them a little bit longer to finalize what they want to do. So we wanted to have this introduced just in the event that it's necessary. They may be able to. It may be that it's not necessary when the time comes, but I would hate for us to end up in a situation, or I think it would be irresponsible of us to end up in a situation where we don't really know if something is law or not. So this kind of helps clarify the implementation.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Sweeney to come up in a second, but respond to me that the urgency is that great that we need to do this?
Well, ours is set to go into effect May 15th, and my understanding, if I'm remembering the time frame right, is if the Caddo Parish Commission were to vote at their next meeting and everything were to move forward as quickly as possible, that at this point the earliest implementation date would be May 19th. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct.
That's correct.
And so there is at least a small window there, but there's the chance it could be a larger window where there's a difference in the two. So what this ordinance does is it allows what we've passed to be freestanding until that point in time that they make their decision that can be incorporated into it. Am I making that clear as mud, or is that did it make that worse, or is that clear?
I mean, how can the clerk respond?
The ordinance that was adopted by the council says that it will go into effect on May the 15th, provided the commission adopts the identical ordinance by that time.
Okay.
There is no way that the commission can adopt an ordinance by May the 15th now under their rules.
Mm-hmm.
And if they adopt an ordinance that is different from the ordinance that was adopted by the council, as I read it, the council's ordinance still would not go into effect.
That's right.
If it had one amendment or two amendments that were different, it still would not go into effect. And the council would have to do something else at that point to come up with an ordinance that would be effective.
Okay, and I understand that, and that was my understanding. That's why throughout the process, I considered it as with our colleagues from the commission that we were going to be somewhat consistent in our development. It only came down to the last quarter, two-minute warning when things started to unraveling, and that if it didn't go into effect, if it, according to our adopted ordinance, if the Canoga Parish Commission does not adopt a similar ordinance, it would not go into effect on the 15th. Okay. But and the question I asked Mr. Everson is that, what's the urgency to ensure that it does go into effect on the 15th? If the language already says it would not, if we don't do the adjustment here.
Well, if the council thinks that it's not urgent, then you simply don't want to adopt this ordinance.
Okay. So can I go forward and ask Mr. Sweeney to come forward, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Okay. And let me just say, I mean, my concern here is that I have the utmost respect to elected officials. Elected officials, regardless of what we think about them, you know, they have been elected to represent, and they have their issues. And I think when issues like this come about, I mean, listen, we all have different life experiences. We come from different backgrounds. We don't think alike in all instances. Members of this council, neither do the commission. But Mr. Sweeney, it appeared to me, and this is what I need to understand. For 2 years that we've been on the council, I mean, my first public hearing was at the Rose Garden, and that was back in February of 2015. Commissioners was there, public was there. Throughout the process, you've had joint meetings with commissioners and councils. It appears you're satisfied the council. Was it your job to try to create from both parties a unified document so that it could simultaneously be implemented, or was that not a part of the equation in this whole process?
The goal was for a unified development code. And as Jeff just mentioned a few minutes ago, that word unified includes the concept of combining all your necessary development regulations into one booklet to be provided to the development community to be able to have a consistent, efficient process to go through. Part of the spirit of that concept of unified was expanded to include the whole concept of having the parish be on board with the city council of having exactly the same ordinance. That was an objective or goal that was established back when y'all did the master plan back in 2010. But the purpose of this is a fail-safe measure because, as you have mentioned, there's always with politics and with elected officials, there's always the possibility or the variable that someone may have a different perspective or agenda, which is fine. But the whole idea of having this ordinance amendment that's being introduced here is to give you the option of fulfilling what you already have voted on, which was on February the 28th, to adopt the Unified Development Code with the amendments that were made and to go forward as of May the 15th. As it stands right now, and it's kind of like being a good Boy Scout, always be prepared. Because I have developers and people that are very, very interested in hoping this is in place so they can pursue their development projects because they understand that under the UDC, a lot of the provisions will be better for them. And so they're waiting with great anticipation of the May 15th turn-on deadline. So in this situation, allowing you guys to go ahead and go forward with May 15th, which, by the way, we delayed for quite a long period of time. This is not a rush deal, as you well know. We didn't rush into this. We actually delayed things because we knew we needed more time to discuss with each elected official the issues and the concerns. So all this does, as mentioned earlier, is that if you guys go forward and implement this fail-safe measure, then the parish now has the responsibility to catch up with you. I cannot assure you that they will catch up with you. And so therefore it makes more sense, more common sense to let you guys go out first and get this thing in order and allow the commission, the parish commission, to catch up with you at some point in time. I cannot guarantee how long they want to delay this or if they will delay it. As it stands right now, they are supposed to reintroduce it on April the 20th. But between now and April the 20th, I'm supposed to have a meeting with the parish commissioners to talk over various issues. If you recall, in the last effort that was made to make an amendment, it failed because it didn't get enough votes. So basically nothing was accomplished. And the two amendments that were considered, one was not legally enforceable, and the other one was not worded correctly. And so therefore, basically it just didn't go anywhere, even though there was a lot of discussion. So they want to sit down with me and my staff and talk about some of the issues to see if there's some common ground or some way to explain some of this. We're more than willing to do that, but I don't want to leave the city in a situation, and this is my opinion, I don't want to leave you in a lurch waiting for what the parish commission is going to do. I'm cautiously optimistic the parish commission will vote to approve the UDC, but I have no guarantee.
Don't say that, you'll jinx us.
But I have no guarantee of it. And so all the work, and by the way, and not that I know money is the bottom line to everything, I'm to the end of my contract. I only have $2,600 left in that contract with Camiros. And that will involve one more visit from them to do a training session, and that's it. The money's gone. $450,000 over a 4.5 year period of time. And so basically we're in the 11th hour. And I will say, make this commentary, it's not as though we haven't been asking people to talk to us. And so because of that, there's something of a question mark as to why someone now all of a sudden has a question when they've had the opportunity to ask that question for over 2 years. And so, especially on the one-on-ones, we had one-on-ones with everybody that wanted to have one-on-ones with us. We had about 3 exceptions to some people that didn't. But the reality is that opportunity was always there. And it would behoove the city, I believe, to go ahead and be the leader in this situation, as you have already been the leader, to go ahead and go forward with implementation. And then we'll worry about the parish when they're ready to come on board.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me add my last comment. And again, it seems like it's one of those, from the onset, to me, it wasn't clear. Mm-hmm. I thought we was running parallel.
And we tried to do it.
And that the options was that at the end of the day, there will be something similar to a conference, to where a representation from both bodies will come together, merge their differences, and create a final document. But I find it. I mean, and I'm gonna give you credit, Mr. Sweeney. You and your staff almost satisfied everybody. I mean, time after time, you took. I mean, at the end of the process, you had what, 30 plus amendments?
Yes.
Okay. But I'm gonna go back and say that as an elected official, it appears that we are dealing with a technicality in some instances, that we cannot modify a document to satisfy that, to address that technicality so that we be all on board at the same time. Is that difficult?
It's always a challenge to reach a compromise on things and to be technically in compliance. But it kind of comes back to your philosophy about what you want for your community. When you guys took your vote on the 28th of February, you made a commitment that you wanted to improve the quality of life, improve the economic viability of Shreveport. And you made that front and forward. And you take the risks and the gambles that are involved with all of that. But all we're doing is bringing us up to speed to what other communities have done across the United States so we can compete one-on-one with those communities. You made that commitment. Sometimes other government entities, as the case the Parish Commission, the passion may not be as much there. I feel like there's board members there are certain commissioners that really have the passion of wanting to make this happen. And there's others that are afraid of the change. And that's understandable. That's not a criticism, okay? That's understandable. But when you make this leap forward, as you guys have already done, and they asked, now I'll bring back to your memory on this, they specifically asked out of their long-range committee, specifically asked that the city take the lead on this, and that you guys make the first decision on this. Because they felt like you had more at stake in this than they did. That was their actual words. And that's exactly what you did. And so right now you're hitting kind of what I call a bump in the road. Mm-hmm. I will come back, and I don't want to jinx it. I'll be cautiously optimistic to say that I can get that bump resolved. But I feel, and I come back to this, it is always best to be prepared, to be ready to go forward with or without the parish.
And I'm only going to respond by saying this, and that, and again, I support it, but it seemed to me it's akin to, and I feel like I guess I should ask some questions regarding if what ifs then. And it was somebody said it, and I'm going to repeat it, that it to me it appears like it's a last minute change of the rules, mm-hmm. and that akin to what happened in the Senate last week when we want to change the rules to satisfy something, but it ain't the same.
No, it's not.
Throw some more under the bus here.
But I'm pitting myself against my cohorts on the other side to say we're going to move on without you, and I don't know their position, but at the same time, I just didn't want to be seen, or this body want to be seen as enabling the nuclear option to do something when we have been for 2 years collectively together on an issue. But that's all I have to say.
Okay, Council Bowman.
Councilman Jenkins' budget wasn't working, so he pressed 9.
All I was going to say is, probably a little flippantly, was sitting here thinking, well, maybe we should call it the Shreveport Cat of Disunified Development. but in seriousness, I'm not opposed to a Shreveport development code. And I stand by my vote. I'm satisfied with the way that document reads today. It is not perfect. And I'm not too proud to admit that, something that's 98% complete, done in a timely manner, is better than trying to work out the 100% solution that is very difficult to achieve. So, if we get to the point where we're there and we need to change the name to make it go, I'm all for it.
And do understand that if you do approve this amendment and you do have to utilize this fail-safe measure, we're already in a position to be able to completely do what we need to do to the document very quickly, and it will be ready and available on the 15th of May.
And if I could add real quick, I don't think this should be taken as any sort of a slight towards any government body. I mean, quite frankly, we're allowing them to take the time they need to make their decision while we've kind of made our decision and want to be able to move forward. And by enacting it this way, it's providing them the time for them to reach their conclusions at their time frame without impacting ours. So, this isn't meant to be any sort of a slight or anything. It's just a means of making sure that we can have some defined answers so that we can provide some predictability to those in our development community who are already anticipating moving forward with something that's been passed for a while now. So certainly appreciate those comments, and I heard somebody mention the term nuclear option. I would say I hope we don't have to ever discuss it, but there is something in the city charter that actually allows the city to have its own planning department if
justify.
If MPC doesn't work.
Come on, man, tell them like it is.
It's not like we need to do that. We're not
Come on,
at that point.
Well, see,
but there is a provision.
I'm not proving. No, you went there, but again, that's what we thought long range, in the fact that they may want to pull out and defund, and then how do we respond to that?
I think it now. We fund 90-something% of the operations of that organization anyway. They get
Lord help.
The Caddo Parish
All
Commission
but
gets
12%.
a significant amount of
why should they give us
funding
a-
from the fees that are paid. So it's a profitable enterprise. Well, I don't know if it's profitable, but they don't have a disincentive to be paying for it. I mean, they're getting more value out of it than they're paying into it.
Well,
Let's not go there, let's move.
No,
Yeah, there's no reason
and I
to-
hope it doesn't lead to that.
There's no reason to. I just say there's no. It's not. We're not even to that point where we need to think about anything like that. It's just at this point we just need to make sure that they have an opportunity to determine what they want to, and that we can do something that allows a smooth process. So there's no reason to be thinking of it in a difficult way. At this point in time, they have every right to consider it the way they need to. And hopefully this permits them the time they need to make conclusive decisions.
Okay. Parting word is that I'm used to dealing with two separate codes in the city and the parish, and if it continued to be that way, I could still operate that way. So that's not a problem.
Okay.
But you didn't spend $500,000 to come to this result.
I'm sorry, say that again?
You did not spend $500,000 to come to this resolve.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But if they adopt something with a couple of amendments, it's generally essentially the same except for those amendments.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that we'd have went so low, we could have
And
concentrated on
that's-
us from the beginning, and we'd have spent a lot less money. But anyway, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
There's one other issue that this whole process brings up, and that is in the Unified Development Code, in order to amend the text, if both parties would adopt it, in order to amend the text, both bodies would have to agree on the same language in the future. And because we're having difficulty agreeing to the same language now, it may mean that you would have difficulty in the future. I just bring that up.
What say you, Councilman Everson?
Valid concern.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Crawford. I believe we need to move on.
Ordinances on second reading and final passage, Mr. Chairman. Ordinance 32 amends the 2017 Community Development Special Revenue Fund budget. Ordinance 33 amends the 2017 budget for the general fund. This is for the Shreveport Fire Department and a claimant check from an insurance and a fire truck repair. Ordinance 34 declaring the city's intention to establish permanent and temporary servitudes on certain adjudicated properties for the water and sewer consent decree project. And Ordinance 35 is a zoning case number C-19-17, an ordinance amending Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Shreveport zoning ordinances by rezoning property located on the east side of Uri Drive, 414 feet south of King Place, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, LA, from B2 Neighborhood District to I1 Light Industrial District.
Any questions?
Of that storage.
More storage.
Okay. Mr. Thompson, is there any unfinished business for the council to consider today?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. Anything on, we have no property standard bills. Our next
do have
bill
none,
will be
Mr. Chairman.
held on April the 24th of 2017.
Everybody's taking care of their business.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
to the administration and the city attorney, you was presented with the situation on David Rains Street.
Yes.
David Rains Road.
Yes.
And it's your opinion that establishment is in good standing?
I have only gotten to the extent of locating the history of the establishment. From what I've seen on the permits and licensing, they are in good standing with the state and with the office here. There was a question of distance measurement, and when the facilities were established in reference to or in relation to an adjoining or adjacent church, I believe the establishment was there first, but I've not rendered a formal opinion on it as of today. I plan on getting to that probably by midweek, by Wednesday. If you need it sooner, I can
No,
prioritize.
I would like some conversation or in some way our state representative to be
Sure.
contacted, because I'm getting two different opinions on that.
Okay.
Okay, and I know that the establishment have not sold, according to the residents, as well as I've been in that business. I haven't seen any visible. So there's a lot of concern regarding that they have that ability. So I want to be clear when we bring it to the community.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No appeals today. Any reports from officers, boards, or committees?
Just thanks. We had an infrastructure committee meeting, got some good updates, and got some timeframes laid out for some additional updates. So if you get a chance to look at the minutes from the last infrastructure meeting, or if anybody has any specific questions about what was on this week's agenda, let us know. Be happy to provide that.
Mr. Thompson, their clerk's report.
A couple of things, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to the ad valorem taxes that are on the agenda, the state law requires a number of notifications, and it also requires me tomorrow to read a notice into the record, and I will read that notice into the record tomorrow, and it also talks about the notifications that are required. Also, there is the executive session is today, right?
Yes.
There will be an executive session today immediately after the council meeting concerning ZBA case number BAC 7-17 in the matter of Foster Road at 1557 Acorn Street. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We'll adjourn this meeting and go into executive session again. Excuse me.
In our infrastructure committee meeting today, we had a citizen ask a good question I didn't have an answer to. And at Shreveport, Energy is doing a lot of work in the city, and we have a contact for SWEPCO and we have a contact for Comcast. If there is a point person that we can contact about projects that CenterPoint is doing and get information back to citizens, if you email that CenterPoint contact out to us, I'd appreciate it.
I have one. I do too.
Or you can send it to me.
They've been in my district for a while now.
I don't have
street by street. I'm like, oh, I guess they're on that street now. I'm getting close to these people.
You will not adjourn. You'll just take a vote to
Eric
go
Barker
into
usually
Okay.
contact on it, and I'll send you
Take a vote.
his contact
Voice
information.
vote.
Is that who you have? Okay.
Move. Go into executive session, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you mean a special meeting? Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Disregard that, Chairman, I'm sorry.
Okay,
It's a special meeting.
Okay, call the meeting, City Council now to order. We're going into executive, motion to go into executive session. Is that we need to have that?
That's correct.
I have a motion. Councilman Bradford, second by Councilman Bowman. Any discussion? Please vote.
You got it. You got it. Maybe it'll go back to normal after that.
He's already built that house.
And that motion is passed.